Welcome to your weekly Open the Door to Tai Chi lesson. We're going to continue our Savor the Bite with a small segment of the form. Remember, we're trying to savor it, slow it down, think about it in terms of the principles, in terms of the essentials, in terms of the 6 harmonies. So our little bite today is right after the ward-off sequence. We go into a single whip, wave hands like clouds, and then another single whip. So it is a very small bite, but there is a lot going on. So let's think about when we're done with our ward-off sequence on the right side. Remember, we're facing this direction. We do a press, and then we do a pushing chi, and we turn, and we come into that single whip. So if you think about single whip, there's a lot that can go not so good in that movement. Single whip has rotation in it. You need to be rooted and grounded. You need to be thinking about sinking the shoulders and dropping the elbows. You want to have that motion, not just single whip, right? It is part of the flow, and you have to remember the dantian is the leader, right? So after we do our press, we come into our pushing chi. Our weight is shifting from to the left and then to the right as we form that bird's beak. And then we're rotating into that single whip. Remember, thinking about shoulders down, elbows dropped. Think about being rooted and grounded, that this is a stable stance, that you're not in a stance like this, but that your left foot is kind of behind. If it were to pull back, it would not hit your right foot. So as you do your pushing chi, thinking about your substantial and insubstantial change, rotating, leading from the dantian, coming into your single whip. Your body is not, you're not open up and stiff straight on. Your body is relaxed, and it's just a little bit on that diagonal, so that now when you come into your wave hands like clouds, it's a much more natural, much easier, it's much easier to keep that flow going. When you think about your motion in that relaxed kind of on the diagonal, you also have to be thinking about not raising the chest, right? This is not single whip like this. Remember, we want to contain the chest and raise the back, pulling those shoulders out, even though they're loose and relaxed. It's a pull out, but not a lift from the chest. So one more time, let's come in from that pushing chi, thinking about your substantial and insubstantial change, your rotation, and settling into your single whip. Now as you move into that wave hands like clouds, think about letting that left foot be fluid so that it's ready to become the substantial column as you step in with your wave hands like clouds. Being open and loose. This is really the best movement to think about, keeping those arms open and loose. If, when you're doing your wave hands like clouds, you're too tight to your body, like this, that's a very weak motion and it's very closed in. You want to be open, be away from your body as you're doing your wave hands. Now you don't want to have your arms flowing above your head like this. This is not open and loose. This is just out of control movement. You need to be thinking about, as you're waving hands like clouds, your upper body and your lower body is coordinated. Remember, upper and lower follow one another. There's that ultimate coordination with hands and feet, elbows and knees, shoulders and hips in the 6 harmonies. As we do our wave hands like clouds, it should look like a very gentle, floating, easy motion like clouds. But thinking about what you're doing, why you're doing what you're doing, remember that's part of that savoring the bite, is understanding. Remember that that rotation is power. And you're utilizing that power against your opponent. When you're coming into your single whip, that's part of that rotation, is a deflection, perhaps opening him up and then attacking. That rotation is against your opponent. You need to be thinking about that leading from the dantian. Now, as we come into that final single whip, so as we do our wave hands like clouds for 3 steps, bringing that dantian over that base of support as you're rotating, allowing the legs to be substantial and insubstantial, really distinguishing. Now, as you come into that third single whip, or excuse me, third wave hands, the weight comes onto that right to form that column, form your bird's beak, and then step into your single whip. Notice that as you do your third wave hands, it's not here and just lifting that left arm. It's actually a continuation of that rotation that you were just doing in your wave hands like clouds. So let's come into that first single whip. And now your wave hands like clouds, really slowing that motion down, feeling that weight shift. Utilizing your rotation. Now here's your third, wave hands like clouds. Fill that right leg, but notice that you're actually continuing that wave hands like clouds to settle into your second single whip. It's not a stoppage of the wave hands and then moving into single whip. They are connected. Remember, linked without breaks. Keep that rotation going. Let's try that again, but let's come from the pushing chi at the end of our ward off. Our substantial and insubstantial changes, rotating on that central column, settling into that single whip, and then rotating into your wave hands like clouds. Here's your third wave hands. Think about all that weight coming into the right and continue that rotation to settle into your second single whip. So yes, it's a very small little bite, but like I said, there's a lot going on with it. Practicing just that little bit is important. As you practice, maybe just practice your wave hands like clouds without doing single whip. Thinking about that rotation, distinguishing substantial and insubstantial, making sure that you're coordinating upper and lower, that it's flowing and yet has that power of that rotation. Then add your single whip and notice as you're starting from your single whip how it moves into wave hands, and then as you're ending wave hands like clouds, how it moves in almost like you're continuing your wave hands into your single whip. So savor that bite this week, and then we'll move into our kicks next week.